What's up, everybody? My name is Alex, and welcome to the Broth, the most fun, serious show on the internet. We're here live in the Cauldron, and today we're going to be talking about the Fuentes Tucker beef. Really a fun one. I just realized I got the fan going, and that's going to be. Actually, I think it's you can't hear it. Um, this is going to be an awesome show. We're going to look at some clips and we're going to talk about this crazy, controversial beef between Tucker Carlson, who's been exposed as being a CIA agent because he heavily suggested that Nick Fuentes is a CIA agent. And the results of this was it a mistake? Was it not? I don't know. But is can be seen right here in this graph. This is interest over time, past 7 days. Right here is the beef a couple days ago, and it's versus Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson. And interest in Nick has rocketed way above Shapiro. He's been more interesting than Shapiro to people overall before, but now clearly over. And Shapiro doesn't really have much to do with this, but Tucker does. And you can see here on the right, Tucker gained some interest over this, but Nick gained significantly more. And my kind of big question is, did Tucker make a big mistake? People often underestimate Nick. But I'm a big conspiracy theorist, of course, as you all know, and I always try to think about if seemingly unintended consequences could be intended consequences. But I'm definitely not letting Tucker off the hook here. We're going to be quite critical of him. And we're also going to talk about, well, I want to just update you guys on a couple of kind of things, real people things, a couple of conversations that I had in real life. I'm going to turn that fan off just because it's distracting me a little bit. So let's do a little bit more spy music. Alrighty. So shout out to Friendly for hanging out with us. Hopefully we get a couple more live viewers. In the meantime, a couple people I talked to are going to be Replay Gang today. Uh, and yeah, it should be a fun one. Couple things. So I had a lunch with a coworker recently. This young guy, he's like 20 years old, and he grew up in an atheist household, and he's becoming a Christian. He's a believer. Praise God. And he's discerning where he belongs, what kind of, if he wants to join a church or which one. And I told him I went through that as well. I've done a lot of research, and I'm a Catholic, but I will try to, I tried to be. It's not easy to be, neutral or anything, but so I was giving a lot of the Catholic perspective, but I was being charitable to other viewpoints and stuff. And we had a really cool conversation, and it's funny, I just start talking about the truth, and these other things come up. So I'm talking about the little season with him, flat Earth stuff, and I made it very clear, like you don't have to believe in these things to be a Christian, and there's not really like neither here nor there. And we're talking about politics. He was mentioning this other guy that we both know who used to work with us, and who he was like, did he tell you that? He was like, what do you think of that guy? And I just said a couple things, and he was like, did he tell? I think he has a lot of hate in his heart. And I was like, well, why do you say that? And he was like, well, did he tell you that he's like a Nazi? And and he did share that this other guy, had said a couple things that aren't, that I don't agree with, that aren't Christian. I think he's sort of this other guy is said he's Orthodox, but I get the feeling he hasn't really taken any steps to be that. He's just sort of online ortho bro or something. I don't know. I mean, maybe he has, but there's no Orthodox churches up here, so he's clearly not going to mass all summer. And but what I said was, I said, the you know that word Nazi is basically the N word for like white people that don't hate themselves. And that is a really effective thing to say, I'm finding, because this young guy, he knows some things. He's kind of base, but not very much. He hasn't been exposed to a lot. Basically, what he said was, he started reading the Bible thinking that he would probably find some like interesting philosophy and good advice in there. And he was like, I had no idea. Like, he was just blown away by the Bible, and is a Christian. And, I love this kid too. He's great kid, or guy. I'm old, so I can call him a kid. Um, and So, I was like, for white people, and he's a white guy, very blonde, blue-eyed guy, and I was like, for white people, um, who don't think anyone in the world should be able to come to our country and just build mosques here, and we're supposed to feel bad about our history, and we're supposed to feel bad about colonialism, and if you don't apologize for all of these things, then this is what they call you. And um, he totally got that. And I think he kind of understood that, like, perhaps this other guy, in some respects, is calling himself that because he's been called. It's sort of like, well, if I'm going to be called that anyway, you might as well lean into it, type of thing. Um, so yeah, and I'm blown away. Like, this generation, uh, he's like probably young, on the young end of Zoomers, middle to young. They're so open-minded because they've been exposed. Like, first of all, they know their education is like full of BS. And secondly, the country's gotten so bad that like they can't. It's hard to be delusional about the state of things and where the future might go. And and then there's exposed to so much information, on TikTok or wherever, that they're really open-minded. So I said I didn't believe in space, and he's just like, really, like, huh, like, why? So it was a really fun conversation. Yeah, that's true. We're we're middle-aged or something. But yeah, I'm old enough to call a 20-year-old a kid, I think. And I don't mean that with any disrespect at all. He's just like in a very different phase of life than I am. Um, so anyway, that was awesome, and we're gonna meet again on Monday again. Um, and if I have time, I kind of want to send him like a couple things of just food for thought, like things that we touched on. We were talking about some of the Jewish stuff, and he's really not really like, I told him about what it says in the Talmud. He didn't know about that. I told him about the control over pornography and the lobbying to make that pornography everywhere, and he was pretty shocked by that. Um, but he didn't have that discomfort that people used to have, where, um, you know, they would just get like really uncomfortable if you say anything about Jewish people or whatever. And I let it come up organically. I'm getting pretty good at this. So we'll see. We'll see how the next one goes. But I'm really proud of this guy. So he said he came from like a small town and he had a friend that was going to church who's like a evangelical or something. And so he started going to church with him and they came out here and they put him in he's in employee housing. They put him in a apartment with like guys in their late 20s, maybe early 30s, and they're all like alcoholics. They're doing drugs and stuff. And this poor kid, and he said like at first he was like disgusted by this behavior, the binge drinking and stuff. And then he said he had a period where it was like, well, maybe it's not so bad. And then he kind of came back around of like, I got to get out of here. So he is put in this 2 weeks. He's leaving, and he's gonna move to. I think he's probably gonna go back home for a little bit, but he is trying to work because he doesn't want to know what he wants to do for college yet. And he likes the seasonal thing, and he likes the service industry, restaurants and stuff. I told him, maybe you get a job as a cook at a like a seminary or something. So I might do a little research and see if I can find them some things to apply to. Because the industry I work in, especially the seasonal thing, it really is full of a lot of, just we're a bunch of screw ups, you know. So yeah, I'm really excited for him. Um, another real life conversation. You bartend, you just hear people talk all day, and they basically like pretend you don't exist. You're just fly in the wall. Uh, and there's this guy. Like I think a little older Gen X, and he's like a super liberal, and he's an alcoholic. And there's another guy that was at the bar. They had just met, and the other guy was like a little younger, but still Gen X, and I think a liberal. That guy was doing what you're supposed to do with bar etiquette, which is like not really blab about your politics, and he was sort of keeping his cards closer to his chest, which I appreciated. And this other guy, the first guy, the older one, just he was drunk and just bar etiquette was out the window. He assumes I agree with him, which I couldn't disagree with him more. Um, and it's amazing. Liberals, if you like don't have a MAGA hat or like a swastika tattooed on your forehead, they think that you obviously agree with them because you're like a decent human being. And so it's kind of annoying, but it was also like, okay, this is a little window into what some people are thinking. And they were talking about how, they're liberals and Democrat voters or whatever, but that like the left lost their mind and lost them with all of this a million genders and pronouns well, and then one guy was like, yeah, I'm not saying your pronouns, and then he was like, well, even I didn't have any problem with the pronoun thing, just the idea that there's not just two categories. And he's sort of lamenting that this craziness is why Trump won and stuff. And he said that he was pro decriminalizing drugs because he thought if somebody's walking around with a little baggie of cocaine in their pocket, no big deal. He was like, I didn't think this was meant people were going to be shooting heroin into their neck on the sidewalk. And it's like, yeah, bro, like I, you know, I used to be that liberal in some of this stuff, but now I recognize like I was super wrong and I was the problem. And there was none of that. It was like, where did this come from? It's like, what did you were wrong about what was going to happen, you idiot. You were wrong about who was trying to do what. And I did get a little comment in there, which because I have to keep my cards really close to my chest, as it's not bartender etiquette, it's not bar goer etiquette, and it is my place of work. But I said, I think referring to the gender stuff and the trans stuff. So I think people are really still kind of reeling, like our whole country is still going like, what the heck just happened? And he was like, yeah. And I said, if he said something about it swinging the other way, and I said, if it swings a fraction of the other way, it's going to really be quite something. And he goes, oh, we have ICE agents showing up to kids' soccer games. I think it swung the other way. And I just said, it's, it's not even close. And unfortunately, he probably was too drunk to really take that in. But uh, it was interesting, you know. It's like, yeah, people still have no idea what's going on. You know, here's the guy. This guy is in for. He's really in for it. You know, if he thinks how it is now is it swung the too far the other way. No concept that like Trump is actually not that conservative. That uh, young men have all swung way to the right, and that Trump is not conservative enough for them, and that all these people who don't like Democrats or Republicans, young people, are like right of Trump, and that, I don't know. It's like you're in for it. I was listening to Osmond Gold, who I've really come into respect. Um, Although I'm definitely to the right of him, and I think that he's sort of missing some key pieces of what's really going on. But I like him, and he was talking about mass migration in England and playing this guy who was like really articulating the issue in a almost basically politically correct, like very, very well, oriented to sort of the everyday person. And somebody in Osmond Gold's chat said, this is someone who's radicalized, and he was like, bro, like if you think this guy is radicalized, like you're gonna have a bad time. Um, and yeah, I don't know. It's kind of remarkable to me just how out of touch people can be. Um, it's a little bit scary because the radicalized people, I mean, the radicalization is good, at least our kind of that is good. Oswald was talking about like he thinks this is, that they're headed for civil war in Europe and that that's really bad. And it's like, yeah, but like them not doing anything about that would be really bad for sure. But them not doing and he's pretty sober mindset about it. He was saying like this could be worse. This could be worse than World War II. And that is sobering. Like you hate to even think that way, but also like just Europe dying and being run by and it's not like if the white people disappeared from Europe, the brown people would all murder each other too, like filling in that power vacuum. Anyways, I'm all over the place a little bit. I got the caffeine going. I got started on this stuff, the methylene blue. There's something to this. You can feel it. If I kind of worked my way up to like a full dose, like a full dropper full, and drank it, and it was like it can kind of come on so much. Like I was driving and I was like, huh, like my brain, something's happening in my brain right now. And it's not unpleasant at all. I could see it becoming an everyday thing for me. Sit down, young lad. So anyway, let's get to the subject at hand here. We're gonna watch some stuff. We're gonna talk some stuff. Thought this would be a good intro. Um, this is Alan Watt. Not to be confused with Alan Watts, the Buddhist, the guy who brought Buddhism to the West. Looks like this stream dropped, but we should be back up in any second. There we go. um, yeah, I watched some of his stuff and I read some of his stuff many years ago. And um, I don't really like know what his whole deal is or anything, but he was on point about some stuff. And check this out. This is him talking about intelligence and misinformation. And this is a good context for examining who is Tucker Carlson and what is he doing, what's going on here.
What is counterintelligence? Counterintelligence, from a government's perspective, is taking information and data that's that could be crucially, it could be bad for the ruling regime, and finding ways to counter that knowledge, counter it. What you do, standard-wise, if you can't defame the person who's bringing out a truth or kill them, is to bring out your own heroes, launch them well, finance them well into the same area, saying the same stuff that others are talking about. It's called intelligence, giving out facts. And once they have the following, then they start bringing in aliens and UFOs, and they bring in the New Age, the whole New Age religion into it. Spirituality is the big term they're using today. Until a newcomer, a skeptic, will hear this stuff from the paid agent, who's very good, who says gives the same data as the person who doesn't go into the UFOs and so on. But the guy who doesn't go into the UFOs, aliens, reptilians, and all the rest of it, suddenly is thrown out with the other guy. You're classified with them by association. Your topics are associated. Even though you stay clear of the fantasy stuff, the disinformation, you'll be lumped along with them. And then you've countered the intelligence. When you mention the facts, people laugh at you, say, oh, you probably believe that the aliens are running the world now. And that's it. That's counterintelligence. And that is also all over the internet. And it's paid for by, again, government psyops operations.
Ad B, they put this in your feed because you were meant to be here with us, brother. Hang out. We're gonna have some fun, or leave. You know, it's fine. By the way, please like the video and subscribe. I now understand why people say that every time is because even when it's like your best friends, nobody, just people don't think of it, um, which is fair. But do me a favor. So anyway, we looked at that. So Tucker uh, attacked Mr. Fuentes right after, with Candace Owens on the show, right after she does this hit job on him. And something that's a little bit conspicuous is that Candace's attempted smear or takedown of Nick flopped spectacularly. Um, People trust her less based on it. Um, she lost credibility. And you'd think it wouldn't be that hard to like smear somebody who has, such a reputation as an extremist and all that sort of stuff. Thanks, man. Appreciate the thumbs up. Um, you know, but Nick is highly capable, and also like Candace isn't that capable. I really, it was a reality check for me. I thought she was smarter than I realized, and it really. I was having this conversation with Friendly a little bit. Got me thinking about, well, like, okay, actually, maybe she has a handler, and this is more about them. This is more about what they're intending to happen than it is her. Because, Nick was talking about it yesterday, like mispronouncing words, not knowing basic facts about history and stuff like that. Got a video where Tucker is talking to Bongino, and his teeth start shape-shifting and mouthing what Bongino is saying. He's such a chameleon. Basically my theory of Tucker is that whatever type of he might have a good heart in some way. He was born into CIA family. Those people lie for a living, especially if you're on the media side. He has been lying for a living, whoever's paying for him, whoever is whatever the agenda behind it, whether it's sometimes can be positive or sometimes negative. He's been lying for a living for so long that I think he's basically like insane. Like everything that he says sounds insincere. Like it's weird. Um, and he's going to go on to say that Nick is an op to make the right look bad. Bro, he doesn't make us look bad. You make us look bad. You with your weird mannerisms and disingenuous way that you speak and lying and gatekeeping and the left thinks you're a Nazi anyway. And like you make us look bad. Nick, it's like people, like I was watching there's this black family and they're conservatives, three guys, they're brothers. I forget their name, but they're reacting to Nick like leveling harsh criticism on black culture. And they're like, yeah, they're like he makes a lot of good points. This doesn't make our side look bad. He articulated something important and he did it well, and he sounds authentic because he is. And then Tucker goes like, I'm not racist. I've been making the anti-racist argument my whole life. And it's like, yeah, dude, like, how does that make us look good? You're an anti-racist, and for anyone new, I don't hate anybody. It's not about that at all. Like, I don't know. Let's watch this. This Kaiser Rev did a great job with it. Or I'm not sure who made the side by side initially. Nick is reacting to it, but everybody basically is understanding that Nick is right that Tucker was CIA, and people are. I mean, Nick absolutely crushed this monologue. Was insane. It was 3 hours of like hard hitting expose, and he's I wanted to see what the liberals were saying, so I watched some Zoomer, like not radical, like just Democrat um streamer react to and talk about the feud and stuff. And like the liberals are kind of loving Nick's making fun of Tucker. He's making fun of his voice and stuff, and the guy had to pause Nick because he was like he didn't want his audience to like it too much. Um, and I don't know. It feels like, and then there's this whole class element to this. Osmongold talks about this too, that it's like you know, we're kind of a funny movement. Um, like we are elitists in the sense that we want people to aspire to be elites and to replace the elites. This is a big message from Fuentes. Um, but also like we're also a populist movement in that I think that's in some ways a reaction to like the Democrats' sort of contempt for like the white working man. So it's kind of an interesting balance. But I think a lot of the kind of populist style Democrats are like really agreeing with Nick's takedown. When Nick goes off about Tucker being this disingenuous elite looking down on us. And I don't know, it feels good. All of this feels very good to me. Like not just because the result is Tucker losing credibility and Nick gaining, but like I don't know, it feels bigger than that. Like it feels like liberals are being exposed to a side of the right that they've never been exposed to before. Right on, man. Have a good one. Maybe you'll check out the replay uh, later. Thanks for hanging, and thanks for the like. So anyway, let's take a look at this.
I mean, this is part of the sad thing about Pat Buchanan, as far as I'm concerned.
Sad thing is, and I know that no one who watches him will believe me,
Pat does raise issues that I think are important.
doesn't mean everything he says is false. It doesn't mean he's not talented. He's enormously talented. Doesn't mean he's a bad person. I'm not attacking him personally.
I mean, I think that, the sovereignty of the American military, et cetera, I mean, these are not just crank issues.
It's young white men who've been totally cut out of our economy, attacked mercilessly. I mean, they really are the victims, and they're desperate, and no one speaks for them. So they go to Fuentes because he's like incredibly articulate, and they think he's our leader.
But unfortunately, Pat Buchanan raises them in a way that I think is discredited.
But he is clearly part of a campaign to discredit non-crazy right voices.
Pat Buchanan is part of the reason it's so hard to have that conversation, because he discredits it by his presence.
That's a campaign to destroy credible voices on the right. And Fuentes is part of it.
And that he believes in conspiracies, and that he believes that the Jews are this sinister, secretly organized force trying to affect American politics. And those aren't discussions I think normal people, sober people should be having.
Anyway, like, who is this kid exactly? Mm-hmm. And maybe it's just an accident that the guy exclusively goes after people who are in the same, roughly the same. And then he gets up there and he's like, making Holocaust jokes.
When attacked, he can always fall back on the line, well, the tiny cabal that controls American politics doesn't like me because I speak truth to power. This is actually, incidentally, almost verbatim what he said the other day, that I offend the plutocracy, that I'm a wanted man by the inside the Beltway people, and in every sense cast himself as a victim who is sort of a Karen Silkwood of politics, someone who's so truthful that he's being hunted down by the conspiracy that runs Washington. I mean, it's all a bit much.
25 years later, a quarter of a century later, and it's the exact same story. It's literally the exact same story. Calls for regime change in Iraq then, calls for regime change in Iran now. Pat Buchanan running as a spoiler, as a third party against the Republicans then. Me telling the Groypers not to vote for Trump because of the war in Iran now. And verbatim the same script. Back then, Pat Buchanan is spoiling the conversation, discrediting real voices by his presence. Nick Fuentes is part of a campaign to discredit authentic America First voices. The only thing that changed is the costume. You notice that? The only difference is the costume change. 25 years ago, he's wearing the bow tie and the navy blazer and khakis. And today, he's wearing his flannel shirt. Signature flannel shirt on his own network in his log cabin in Maine. That's the only thing that changed. 25 years ago, he was just playing a different character. 25 years ago, he was playing one of the Brooks Brothers, hanging chads type elite conservatives, which were in vogue back then. And now that we have a populist conservative movement made up of Matt Walshes and Trump voters and the swamp people, the duck hunters, what do they call them? Now he's got his flannel on with his sleeves rolled up. And as Candace Owens said, he really just wants to hunt and fish with his kids in Maine. Costume change. 25 years ago, he was a member of the elite. Since Trump got elected, he underwent a rebrand and became a populist. I'm fighting for the people. I'm one of you. Look at me. I'm wearing a flannel and flip-flops. I like Zinn, just like you. I'm a regular guy. But it's the same attack. And what the attack comes down to, as I said last week, it's a gatekeeping, limited hangout operation. It is explicitly telling you these are the bounds of acceptable discourse. It is okay to talk about the Israel lobby. It is not okay to talk about Judaism. These are legitimate issues, and I think people should talk about them. But the way he talks about them is all wrong. It's hateful and crazy. He says that he's being accused of, or he says rather that he's playing the victim. He's attacked by the inside the Beltway crowd. But that's just a fallback. That's just an excuse. He is a legitimate anti-Semite. Sober people should not be hearing this. Sober people should not be discussing what he is discussing. It's the exact same script. And honestly, I saw that clip and it's just disturbing. I don't know what else to say other than it's just disturbing because it's literally the exact same script a quarter of a century apart. They've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, pretty wild. really does expose Tucker. And then I watched a clip. I'm not going to play it because I can just sum it up easily enough. But Richard Spencer responded to all of this. I saw a clip of it, and he was saying that his criticism of Tucker here was that, Tucker's kind of what Tucker is saying is like Nick is going after the critics uh, of neoconservative politics, that's obviously a good thing. The enemy is neoconservative politics, and him and what's his name, the comedian that's never told a joke, who's like sacrosanct. You can't. Dave Smith, just the best person ever. And the Joe Kent, that these people are they're the heroes because they're critical of neoconservatives, which is the boogeyman that Tucker supported 25 years ago. I was gatekeeping for them. Um, Richard Spencer points out the enemy is not the neocons anymore. That's 12 years old. We've moved on. Spencer says the problem now is that Trump seems to support Israel and the genocide in Gaza, which I have my own feelings about what he's doing with that. But yes, that is the issue, is that our government is occupied by Israel, and it doesn't matter. Neoconservatism was a flavor of, it was the mask that or it was a faction, let's say, of Israelis that took over our politics, and now there's new ones, and Nick is the only one who is kind of telling the whole truth about all of this. Dave Smitherstein, yeah. And uh, Richard Spencer points out that these people like Tucker were as wrong as you could be 20 years ago, and now they've admitted that, but we're expected to think that they're going to be right about what's going on now. So yeah, that clip I think is really powerful, um, and people are just getting it. You watch that and it's like, oh, like this is just like those clips where they edit like every major news personality is all saying the exact same talking points at the same time, and it's like brainwashing, and it's what do you call it? Uh, Project Mockingbird, which Tulsi, by the way, has said that it is still going on and that she is seeking to dismantle it. And what, I don't know, like a week, the same week that she said that, um, uh, Howard Stern show is ending. Um, what's his name? Stephen Colbert's show is ending. It's kind of interesting. USAID, the funnel of money gets turned off, and Tulsi says we're looking to shut down Project Mockingbird, and these people just start dropping like flies. And it'll be interesting to see, okay, Tucker's calling Nick a Fed, Nick is calling Tucker a Fed, Candace is a Fed. It'll be, it'll be interesting to see if any of these people's are affected by the ending of Project Mockingbird, if they're successful, by the turning off of the money. That's a good way to sort of test our hypotheses, is to take a look at that. And I thought it was really funny also, Tucker said, where does his money come from? Where does Nick's money come from? Yeah, have you ever watched the show? Have you seen the few $1,000s that come in super chats every night? Who funds me? Here I have a show. Who's paying me? Where's my money coming from? How do I know all of this stuff? It's all very suspicious. Well, I have the internet, and I work. I saved up, I don't know, I spent $1,000 on a computer and a mic and a camera. So I don't know. But again, I will come back to, was Tucker so out of touch? Do you really think he was going to you know, win this? Did he think he is going to win a I'm not a spy, no, you're a spy competition with the most articulate person in politics. It doesn't make any sense. But clearly, he is clearly doing the gatekeeping thing. That's what this is. This is clearly gatekeeping. He's obvious, it's Fed jacketing. It's the whole thing. And it worked pretty well back then with Pat Buchanan. And I guess I could totally see that he would think it would work today. And he just doesn't know what time it is. And I'm thinking that with Candace too. But I'm also thinking, yeah, but does the CIA think this? Are they that out of touch? That's possible too. And then, I have the context of the Q hypothesis, um, which would tell us that we would have patriots embedded in some of these different intelligence groups, and they may be we have what we call white hats. And what those people are trying to do, or one of the things that they're trying to do, is to red pill everybody. And this is red pilling everybody. Uh, so I don't know. Did anybody have an idea that this would backfire and encourage this? This is my thought with Candace. It's like, okay, clearly she's not the brains of the operation here, but does she have a handler? Because this is so the fallout for Tucker on this is devastating. His credibility is in the toilet now. Same thing with Candace, but I think especially this was really creating problems for Tucker and his reputation. So if he didn't see this coming, did anybody else? Did somebody kind of suggest this was a good idea to him? Pure speculation on my part. I don't know. But I do think it's good to kind of look a level deeper and just consider if sometimes what look like purely unintended consequences may have been intended, maybe by somebody. So, and here's an example of Tucker being the one that makes us look bad. It just makes us look like idiots.
Is these things no longer, we're looking at it the wrong way. What matters is the ideas and who's propagating them, and it's an international group of companies and rich people, and Justin Trudeau is just a vessel.
It's an international group of companies. It's companies. These fucking companies, man. Man, I hate these companies. These companies have ruined my life, okay? I made one joke, and these companies are relentless. They have ruined my life. I get out of bed every day. I have no payment processing. I have no Twitter because of these fucking companies, man.
These things no longer, we're looking at it the
the right's arguments are compelling. It's a far more cohesive worldview than the left has. It's much more aligned with right and wrong. The problem is people never hear our actual arguments because of all these limited hangouts. That's the reason Nick is so powerful is yes, he is super articulate and he's gotten a lot better, even in the last couple years that I've been watching. But what part of why he's so powerful is because he tells the truth. He doesn't sugarcoat it. He doesn't talk around it. It's not compelling if you talk around the important stuff. So I got to play this. This is just the most brilliant, one of the best pieces of propaganda, and I don't mean that in a negative sense. Propaganda is neutral, and consider myself a student of it, and in my own small way, a creator of it. This is one of the best pieces of propaganda I've ever seen in my life. Shout out to Weaver Rising 2. Yeah, let's just watch it.
You just interviewed Nick Fuentes.
I did.
Or had a.
And I think this really does. The reason it's so effective is this is people's honest reaction to watching all of this, and this person put it together in a way that evokes the emotion in a 2 minute 45-second thing. Like this isn't even Goebbels said this. Like good propaganda is true. It's like how can you tell the story of what's true in a way that is moving to people because the truth is complicated. So let's watch it.
You just interviewed Nick Fuentes.
I did.
Or had a conversation with him. What did you think of that? What do you think of him?
My experience with Nick Fuentes is that he's a terrible person and a terrible human being.
But he is clearly part of a campaign to discredit non-crazy right voices.
I can confirm he's dishonest.
This child, this weird little gay kid in his basement in Chicago, young white men who've been totally cut out of our economy. I mean, they really are the victims, and they're desperate, and no one speaks for them. So they go to Fuentes because he's like incredibly articulate, and they think he's our leader. But in one of the saddest ironies of all, like he's acting against your interests, actually.
But then when it comes to me, I'm one of the real disaffected white people. You want to talk about me and them? I am them. He says Nick Fuentes is leading all of the disaffected young white men. I am a disaffected young white man. I was a precocious, intelligent, young white college student who went to Boston University, who was pro-Trump and red-pilled by Trump and animated by Trump's message of America first. And I asked questions about Israel, and I was punished for it. I did it years before Tucker Carlson started talking about Israel last year. And I sacrificed, and I was targeted by the ADL, by the SPLC, by the federal government, by the conservative movement that both Candace and Tucker were a part of. He's lonely, he's weird, he lives in a basement. That's a lot of people because of the problems you claim to care about. Do you care about Klarna and people going into debt to order pizzas and home ownership being impossible? Or do you think that's a contemptible, low-status thing to be ridiculed and mocked? What is wrong with being from Chicago? What is wrong with being weird? What is wrong with living in your basement? I'm the inauthentic person. I am that person. I am a spokesman for the disaffected white man because I am one, and you two are not. My dad didn't even graduate college. My mother's father was a garbage man in Chicago, and he committed suicide. He was a veteran of World War II. Who's the CIA cutout? Who's the poser? Who is America? I am America. Chicago is America. That's an American story.
Just fire, just incredible. Uh, it's moving, and it's all, I don't know, like I said, this all feels really good to me. Like this whole development seems really good. I feel like it's big, actually. Tons of people are getting exposed to Nick and his ideas, which are the real, there's the real way of framing what's going on in the world is the way that Nick frames it, where it's this is civilizational, this is tribal, this is the world is a story of individual people and heroes who are from tribes, who are from nations, who lead their people, who inspire their people or betray their people. That's the story of human history, and it does, yeah, yeah, amazing stuff. So yeah, let's. So, and I don't know if maybe Tucker and Candace don't understand this, but they might have producers, they might have connections, they might have money, but Nick has something that is bigger than that. He has a devoted following of intelligent people, and they all they're all it's game on, you know. So you have people finding stuff like this, and it's like, Tucker, do you not understand your whole life is going to be put on blast now? Okay, you can't. We're going to see all of it. Here's an example. Tell me this doesn't sound like a and shout out to whoever this interviewer is on C-SPAN, because I feel like they kind of knew what they're doing here. Check this out.
So I'm out of material, as we say.
You took a pretty well publicized trip with your father. Was it about a year and a half ago? How long has it been?
Since we were in Pakistan?
The two of you together? The one where you got left behind for a couple of days.
Oh, no, that was when I went to Vietnam with John McCain. Yeah, I had a hassle at the airport.
And are you still traveling with your father on trips?
Well, I didn't go with him on that trip. No, actually, we went to Pakistan together this time. And we had a problem coming back when our plane went down. But we're fine. Had a great time.
The plane went down?
Yeah, we were on a Pakistan Airways flight from Peshawar to
smile.
from Dubai, and something happened to the plane and it crashed. And,
were people injured?
Yeah, a number of people were injured.
You seem to have a lot of adventures when you travel.
Well, you know, I don't know. You leave the country, it's a scary world out there.
How often and why do you travel professionally with your father?
I don't. I just went on this trip with him. I was actually planning on going with another friend of mine who's a reporter, but he didn't go. He couldn't go at the last minute, and you know, not fun to travel abroad by yourself. My father's a great guy to travel with, and very amusing, and adventurous person who's up for anything. So I said, let's go to Pakistan. Okay.
For people that don't know him, what did he do with his career?
He's done a bunch of things. He was a long-time journalist. He was at the LA Times and at ABC for many years, and then did a bunch of other things, and then ran Voice of America and Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
And lives here in Washington.
And lives here in Washington, yes.
Next.
Yeah, you see how that interview knew what she was doing. You know, oh, he's very amusing to travel with. Oh, he's amusing. What does he do for a living? Oh, he runs Voice for America. Oh, never seen anyone quite go into it head on like him. Give me that courtesy, fake little graper. My Kabbalah bracelet will protect me. Ha ha ha. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the Kabbalah bracelet, because I believe, yeah, to this Permabola, I didn't see this one coming, man. I knew he had the Kabbalah bracelet. I don't know. I've kind of like I think I've been a little naive about this bracelet. Like, I was kind of making excuses for Ian Carroll because he's got this thing. We really got, you know, I'm talking to myself here. I gotta get smart here. But okay, I knew about the bracelet. But Permabola says, why doesn't Tucker Carlson post on Saturdays? And I thought, you know, nah, this is like rhetorical or something. So I asked Grok, using his public X profile, does he post on Saturdays or not? Short answer, Grok says no. Based on his public X profile activity, Tucker Carlson does not post on Saturdays. Okay, so, all right. So we have CIA connections. We are also wearing a Kabbalah bracelet, and he's observing the Sabbath. What is this guy? So I was doing a little research on, I was talking to Grok. I said, you know, give me a profile of a type of person. They have CIA connections, they wear a Kabbalah bracelet, and they don't post on Saturdays. They observe the Sabbath. And it mentioned this group, what is it? The Kabbalah. It's like a Kabbalah school, and it fits the bill. It's like, it's for broader than Jewish people. It's for the Goyim, basically. He did it to troll. Ian said he did it to troll. Yeah, sure, Ian. I don't know. And it goes into, it's like, okay, but what's happening here? Because Ian is sharing a lot of really good information. He's highly critical of Israel. He is talking, you know, he mostly talks around it, but he is naming them. He is saying in certain cases the Jews. He doesn't seem to be doing much of a limited hangout. I mean, it's not that useful if the limit is like, you know, really, really narrow. So what is happening? And then also even Tucker. Um, it was funny when this happened. I had just gotten done listening to three back-to-back Tucker interviews, all of which were good. And this one was the standout. He interviewed three people. He interviewed what's his name? This guy who's John Mersheimer. And John Mersheimer has been like he got basically canceled talking about the Israel lobby 20 years ago. And being a harsh critic of American foreign policy and calling out like basically that it's Israel first. And that was a very good interview. And then he had this guy, a U.S. Green Beret veteran, Tony Aguilar, who was retired and went back to work as a contractor, like a mercenary, but his job was going to be to help with the Gaza food aid, and he just couldn't believe what he saw, like the cruelty, and so he's talking about it, and he was talking about like basically the IDF treating Gazans like animals. Like he said, in all of his 20-year career in special ops and stuff, he never saw people be treated in such a dehumanizing way. So he did that interview. And then the most interesting one was this guy Richard Werner. And you know, Tucker being Tucker could be you know, a closet Satanist. That interview is worth watching. Richard Werner or Werner uh, explains how the banking system works. I've heard, and I kind of was aware like that this is true, that it's not just the Federal Reserve that can make money out of thin air, but like normal banks, if you borrow money from them, they're creating it out of thin air. Um, I had heard that, and I basically came to the conclusion that it was true, but I didn't know exactly like I hadn't seen the receipts. I didn't understand how it works. This guy breaks down all of that. This guy right here brings all the receipts. He talks about how like it started in the city of London, um, and his whole story is really compelling. Like it really makes sense how he came to learn this. He was in he was like you know a brilliant young economist, and he was hired, I think, by a company in Japan. It was definitely in Japan to I believe it was in the 90s. Japan was having an economic crisis where simultaneously um, they I think it was like a liquidity crisis and also the property values skyrocketed, and it was to an absurd degree. He explains how like um, you know half of a block, you know, prime real estate like a block in downtown Tokyo, the price of it was equivalent to buying like all of California, which is like our most expensive. It was just unbelievably skyrocketed, and that his job, I think he was writing his dissertation. He Nobody could find the link between these two parts of this uh, financial crisis in Japan, and he figured out that nobody could understand what the connection was because their models for looking at economics, and which was how he was taught also, basically don't consider the banks and consider the banks as like they're just an intermediary, so you can sort of ignore them. You can sort of pretend banks don't exist because they just hold money and you know lend it out and get it back or whatever. But you do look at the interest rates, you look at all these things. And he did a case study on a specific bank in Japan, and Japan had adopted our model of banking. And he realized that the bank was creating money out of thin air. And he kept doing research, and he realized that that's what all banks do. And so he published a book. And the reason he was able to get away with this is because this, and he, this guy's awesome actually. Like, he even goes into how this came out of like alchemy, that in Europe the alchemists were trying to turn lead into gold, and that then they couldn't figure out how to do that, efficiently, but they did figure out how to make money out of thin air. Um, and he sort of talks around some of the Jewish stuff, but like not that much. So what was I saying? So he had this book, and he published it just in Japanese, and it became the best-selling book in Japan, an economics book. He said it outsold um, Harry Potter in Japan, and sort of everything was fine. And then he was working to get it published in English, and he couldn't. He was totally blacklisted. And then eventually, that started coming together, and the CIA called him and threatened him, and he couldn't get it published until he took out a part that talks about who was it? Ben Bernanke or something. And it's a really red-pilling, amazing interview. And that just happened. So this is part of why I'm a little bit like, being a little conspiratorial about Tucker, is like he's revealing the secrets of banking, you know? And the people that he's supposedly playing gatekeeper for on behalf of, they don't want that, Like, so why is it okay for him to do this, but really important for him to like try to discredit Nick Fuentes, and then also like why does it fail so miserably? Isn't that a bit interesting? Just catch up on the chat real quick. Oh yeah. Focus on what they're not saying. Yeah, that's true. All right, so we did that. We did that. So yeah, that between that side by side and the side by side one and the animated video, I feel like that basically covers, like, I don't feel the need to watch the Tucker and Candace clip. Most people have seen it by this time anyway. But this was Nick's go off response that is going viral. This is where, so he did 3 hours of like bringing receipts and talking about Tucker's whole backstory and the connections between him and all these other people and Tucker's dad and all this stuff. And then he kind of talks about the personal attack, and he gets very animated. And this is the part that went viral. And I'm going to play it. I got to pee, so I'll play it, and I'll leave and come back while it's playing. But this is who you were messing with, Tucker. You effed up. Let's watch it.
Boys by Tucker Carlson. I'm being accused of being the CIA by Peter Thiel's best boys. By Tucker Carlson with his daddy. Tucker Carlson's, and you know what? Here's the other thing. Tucker Carlson said I'm a weird gay kid in the basement. Yeah, and I'm from Chicago. You're right. Well, okay, you're not right about all of that. But I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Tucker Carlson says, I have so many trust funds, I never have to work. Tucker went to a $45,000 per year private high school, then a $45,000 per year selective Ivy League school in New England. Tucker Carlson's daddy was a Reagan appointee. And then, after years of bragging about being an elite, bragging about being so out of touch and so rich, now he's going to be the spokesperson for all the white people. Now he's going to roll up his sleeves. I just like to hunt and fish in my log cabin. I care about Klarna and credit card debt. But then when it comes to me, I'm one of the real disaffected white people. You want to talk about me and them? I am them. He says Nick Fuentes is leading all of the disaffected young white men. I am a disaffected young white man. I was a precocious, intelligent, young white college student who went to Boston University, who was pro-Trump and red-pilled by Trump and animated by Trump's message of America first. And I asked questions about Israel, and I was punished for it. I did it years before Tucker Carlson started talking about Israel last year. And I sacrificed, and I was targeted by the ADL, by the SPLC, by the federal government, by the conservative movement that both Candace and Tucker were a part of. Candace and Tucker had nothing to say about Israel until it became unavoidable last year. Not popular, but unavoidable. And now they want to gatekeep me out and do this personality attack and say I'm a bitter loser in my basement from Chicago. I'm a kid from Chicago. And they slipped up there because they forgot for 1 second that they're pretending to be the spokesperson for exactly that kind of person. Tucker's mask slipped, and he forgot for a minute that for 8 years he's been pretending to care about the plight of weird kids in their parents' basement who are broke and didn't go to an Ivy League school, living in cities that don't matter like Chicago, not like Washington, D.C. or L.A. or New York. And that's why he had such disdain and contempt for me in that moment. Between the personality attacks, he's lonely, he's weird, he lives in a basement. I'm sorry, did you guys forget that that's your target audience that you're trying to pander to? Did you forget that for 2 seconds? And I'm the inauthentic person? I am that person. I am a spokesman for the disaffected white man because I am one, and you two are not. Candace Owens got married to British royalty worth $200 million after meeting him for 2 weeks on Zoom. What the fuck is even that about? And Tucker Carlson's dad ran the CIA's propaganda empire fighting the Soviet Union. He went and fought with the Contras when he was in college. When I was in college, I was doing a webcam show in my friend's dorm room criticizing Israel. So who's the CIA cutout? Who's the inauthentic one? Who's the crazy, hateful one? I would never describe a well-meaning young white person who's trying to get ahead as a weird kid in his basement from Chicago. And what is that supposed to mean? What is wrong with being from Chicago? What is wrong with being weird? What is wrong with living in your basement? That's a lot of people because of the problems you claim to care about. Tucker's at Turning Point USA extolling the predatory nature of usury and how it's preventing young white men from getting homes. And then the week after says you're in your mom's basement. So which is it? So which is it? Do you care about Klarna and people going into debt to order pizzas and home ownership being impossible? Or do you think that's a contemptible, low-status thing to be ridiculed and mocked? Who's pandering here exactly? Because that wasn't you. You were born to the Swanson family fortune and your daddy who ran the CIA. You know, my dad didn't even graduate college. My dad worked for the tollway. His dad died of a drug overdose in the 70s. My mother's father was a garbage man in Chicago, and he committed suicide. He was a veteran of World War II. Who's the CIA cutout? Who's the poser? Who is America? I am America. Chicago is America. That's an American story. I didn't go to Yale Law School and suck Peter Thiel's dick and then get a sinecure at a venture capital firm advising Rebecca Mercer and writing hillbilly elegy and talking about it at the Aspen Institute. That's your biographical credibility? How many of these disaffected white people that love Trump because he's racist went to Yale Law School and got plucked out by Peter Thiel, whoever he even is? Peter Thiel with his fixation with the Antichrist, this homosexual who's involved with the CIA, who wants to live forever and govern the world with AI. Yeah, that's really relatable. That's really relatable. Do another show with him and Curtis Yarvin. Do another show. Do the 47th show with J.D. Vance. It is insulting, and it is insulting to everybody's intelligence for Tucker to sit there and say he doesn't know his dad is in the CIA, for him to say that I'm in the CIA. What a joke. What a sick joke. Especially after everything that's happened to me. And unlike what Candace Owens says, she says, what happened to him when he was 18? What happened to me is ongoing. Okay? Unlike Candace Owens and Tucker, I never got a contract with Ben Shapiro and Rupert Murdoch. I was on Maker Support. I was on Patreon. I was on D Live. I had to fight for everything I have. I didn't get $1 million contract from Turning Point. I didn't get $20 million from Fox News. My daddy didn't get me a job in Arkansas. So ridiculous.
Yeah. Pretty spot on, I would say. That's just him with the bracelet again. Here's another clip.
Nick, you have a unique and special talent. That's the one thing Tucker was right about. I started my first business at your age in River North and built from there.
Hey!
You are America.
River North sucks, though, dude. I feel sorry for you. What is happening to River North?
Don't need that clip, really. I think this might be part of the same thing.
So who's the CIA cut?
Yeah. All right. So then let's thicken the plot a little bit. If you don't believe that this is Trump, then this isn't. This is kind of neither here nor there. But actually, you know what I want to do is see if I can find him saying that it's him. Yeah, here we go.
You're gonna win this. We're gonna win. Yes, we are. We're gonna win. This country is finished. Appreciate you guys. Are you Pappy Trumpo? Yeah, I think so. You're gonna win.
Yeah, he says.
Yes, we are. We're gonna win. This country is finished. Appreciate you guys. Are you Pappy Trumpo? Yeah, I think so.
Look at that smile. This is him. So this really throws kind of a wrench in things a little bit. And regardless of what this means, everything I say about Nick and his authenticity stands. He says, when you let Tucker, Candace, and that Fuentes kid fight each other over who's real MAGA, I wouldn't say that's what they're fighting over, but knowing none of them are, and you let them call each other intelligence assets, knowing all of them are, just because you love a good fight. Okay. So there's definitely a potential scenario here that all three of these people are in some way working for intelligence. And I would say that if Nick is in any capacity, which it doesn't take away what he was just saying about his family, you know, I believe what he's saying about his family. I've seen, heard his mom call into the show. It's night and day, the authenticity of Nick versus Tucker. I in entertaining that Nick could have intelligence connections. It's not me in particularly entertaining the idea that he's inauthentic. I believe he is authentic. Now, I've considered, and in my Q group chat, we've talked about this several times, the idea that perhaps Nick, what we say is that perhaps Nick is part of the plan, meaning part of the Q plan, which is a plan to get our country out from under a foreign occupation by Israel, and also a sort of to restore a republic from the people who've usurped power for themselves and not for the people. So who many of which are Israelis or Jews, but also includes literally Satanists, people who just care about sort of power cult. There's all sorts of weird stuff going on with elites in this country. I think everybody knows that. Spirit cooking and Pizzagate and all this stuff. Could Nick be a part of the plan? And the sort of thought is, well, he is whether he knows it or not. But okay, if Trump is saying he is an intelligent, I mean, if this is Trump, and a lot of people think it is, and he said it was, he's outing all three of them and saying, fight it out. Let's see what happens. Fight it out. And Nick is winning by far. And I feel like we've all been influenced by, spy movies and all this stuff, and we know about like Project Mockingbird, and someone like Tucker really fits the bill for that perfectly. But like maybe there's other ways in which maybe there's levels to this. And maybe it's as simple as something along the lines of Nick tested super high and attracted the attention of some people, and they had this Q plan coming up because this plan goes back a long time. And they, maybe they had some conversations with a number of precocious kids, and was like, yeah, this is the kid. And then all they did was like, say, yeah, you're on the right track. Maybe somebody sends him some information now and then. Maybe Nick doesn't even know, what the nature of this person is. And I guess that would make them something of a handler, but like they're the purpose of Nick is yeah, exactly. I mean, what somebody asked in a super chat from yesterday, like they said how remarkable it is that when Nick was like 17 and was called out by like heads of state, people who are known to like assassinate people, that he didn't give up. And I could see it even just being something like that, of like just someone was like, listen, like, don't give up. You are on the right track. Uh, and there are things that, it's not like, Nick knows a ton, but it's not like he's like, he does the research. It's not like I'm like, it just seems like he has a crystal ball exactly. Like he has predicted things, but it's not like, there are important things that I strongly believe that Nick either isn't aware of or doesn't address. Like, he, I guess, considered flat Earth for a little bit and then backed away from it. Certainly Q. But I don't know. My reaction to this tweet was this emoji or this GIF. Like it was like, okay, first of all, is Trump acknowledging Nick, bringing more eyes to this whole thing. Saying they're all sort of involved in something. This makes a lot more sense, I think. Like you said, Friendly, like it does fit with from my perspective on this. So I don't know. I mean, I do think that some people, we do have to expand our mind from the idea of like, there are, it's similar to like that there's the Democrats and the Republicans. Like Fed has a bad connotation, and for most of our recent history, they're feds and media have been gatekeepers. They have been propagandists. They have been tasked with sort of obscuring the truth and promoting the regime and stuff like that. But that's not a foregone conclusion for all of them by any means. Um, you know, I mean, what's his name? General Flynn is a good example of this. Like, he's a Fed, he's in the military, he was employed by the federal government his whole life. Uh, so I don't know. It's interesting. We'll see. All I can do is speculate. But what I would say is this isn't, it's not a condemnation. Calling none of them real MAGA is kind of interesting too. Like, I guess they're not, um, they all have criticisms for Trump, but he has his America First priorities. Get what you're saying? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to keep an eye on it. And there's going to be a lot happening. I didn't talk about it this week because I'm a little tired of talking about what's going to happen with the Q stuff and like it's like, okay, well, we'll see. But there is a lot of stuff going on with these subpoenas. Big people getting subpoenaed. They're going to be called before Congress. We'll see what happens. But people talking about treason, which we've been talking about forever. Spygate, Russiagate, these things. So a lot more things are accelerating. More is going to be happening. We're going to get to a point, I think, where almost every day there's big stories happening, and we're not there yet. And you know, part of how I began the show about how out of touch so many people are is part of the issue. That was a great segment on Tucker, and Candace nailed it. Thanks, man. So let's see. Do I have anything else? Oh yeah. So this is fun.
Well, Tucker, I'm glad you're tuning in because this kid from Chicago, this 20.
So this is from like the next show. I think this is from Monday. And I believe it's sort of a follow up. And then also Nick is going to do another follow up show on Friday where he's going to talk more about this stuff. So I'm definitely tuning into that. It should be fun.
26-year-old kid from Chicago with this chip in the shoulder and the world in his eyes is about to tell you more about your dad. If you were surprised to find out your dad was CIA, I'm about to blow your mind. And I didn't get this information from the CIA. I got it from Mint Press News. I got it from C-SPAN. I got it from Wikipedia. It's all available on the internet. You should try it sometime. Tucker says he doesn't own a TV. He doesn't use email. Maybe that's why he doesn't know this information, right? Tucker frequently says, I never watch TV. I don't even own a TV. I don't even use email. That's probably why he's so out of the loop, because all this information is on the internet. It's all there. If you Google Dick Carlson, you'll find all of this. So someone send him the clip, someone transcribe it onto a leaf or translate it into Morse code or smoke signals, whatever Tucker is able to interpret, however he gets his media. Someone could write it on a note and pass it to him by the Pony Express. And I will teach him more about his own dad. I can do that because I'm a 26-year-old kid from Chicago with internet access and a phone and a TV. This is from Mint Press News. It says Dick Carlson is an important journalist and high state official who was appointed by Ronald Reagan as director of the U.S. Information Agency, the body that oversees government-funded media, including Voice of America, of which Dick was also the director. Together, these outlets are part of what the New York Times called a worldwide propaganda network built by the CIA. This is Tucker's dad. Tucker's dad was a Reagan appointee, confirmed in the Senate, to run U.S. Information Agency, which runs Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, all of it. The New York Times called it a worldwide propaganda network built by the CIA. And up until the 70s, it was exclusively funded by the CIA. In his position as director of USIA, Dick played a considerable role in the downfall of the Soviet Union. In a 1990 event alongside media moguls Rupert Murdoch and Ted Turner, Rupert Murdoch, Tucker's future boss. He noted that, quote, I think we would all agree that international broadcasting, this is Dick Carlson in 1990. This is a quote. I'm going to read it to you. Tucker's dad said this. I think we would all agree that international broadcasting played a very critical role, as was suggested by Mr. Murdoch, the owner of Fox News, in the events that took place in the USSR and Eastern Europe over the last couple of years. From Beijing to Budapest to Warsaw to Vilnius, information poured across borders, and news that millions of people had stood up to their oppressors helped millions of others sweep those oppressors away. He is referring to regime change color revolutions, backed by the CIA media empire that he ran.
So I want to pause here because, man, I'm thinking of a lot of things. So I didn't mention specifically where Tucker's big screw up, which is conspicuously stupid, was that he lied about when he knew that his dad was in the CIA. Now he probably knew it his entire life. You know, he probably figured it out, like in that mafia show. You know, Dad, are you in the mafia? He probably had that question when he was a teenager. You know, he probably knew it for quite a long time. But he said that he found this out in March, and before that, the first he'd heard of it was from Nick, which makes no sense. But that his dad died in March, and he found out for sure, and he said, whoa, that's just crazy, I'm shocked. But we have him on camera a year prior to that, talking about how his dad was in the CIA. So he lied in a way that was extremely easily exposed. Why? Did he forget? I mean, he lies all the time. That's the hard part of being a liar, is you forget. But it's just bizarre that he would say something, a professional liar, that he could get so easily caught in. And another thought I have here is he's talking about how Tucker's dad, well, he wasn't just in the CIA, he was instrumental in color revolutions in other countries. Now, something that Q talks about, and other people have talked about this too, this isn't exclusive to Q, is that essentially what's happened with Spygate, Russiagate, the media mobilization against Trump, the paid protesters against Trump, the manipulation of January 6th, the coverage of January 6th, this was these same people using the same color revolution tactics that we've used for decades to overthrow governments in other countries against the United States. Right now, the Trump administration is going after these people. They're calling it treason. We will be hearing about how it's a color revolution and it's color revolution tactics. And Tucker's dad was like the point man in color revolutions in other countries. And Tucker himself, privately, and it got leaked, talked about how much he hated Trump and he was an ever-Trumper. And then now Tucker is our guy, and him and Candace Owens are spending all of this time. Candace Owens stream from today. What it says, that the headline is, yes, Trump will pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. And she has her little smug face. Well, how do you know that, Candace? It sounds like propaganda to me. It sounds like anti-Trump propaganda. It kind of sounds like a continuation of a color revolution against Trump. Now, you could say that about Nick, too, but why does Nick have to be discredited? Clearly, Candace and Tucker have the establishment backing. And I would say that the way Nick talks about it isn't like a color revolution, because he is criticizing all of the things based on not based on what might work in the moment, but more based on what real America First values are, what the real movement is supposed to be. He's criticizes Trump for deviating from what the movement was supposed to be, not for. Well, there's some parallels. There's some parallels, but there's definitely a difference in authenticity. I don't know. Something that is like something I've been thinking about with in the Q drops. It talks about how like, yeah, nobody is going to be let off the hook. Nobody. And part of what they're going to do is they're going to take people who were for the deep state. Then they have everything. They know about all. They have all of their crimes documented, whether it's tapes from Epstein Island or tapes from somewhere else of them doing something like that. But also, if Tucker has correspondences with other people about doing a color revolution in the United States to hijack Trump because he saw him as a threat, they have that. So this is a question that we should ask is Tucker now sort of been enlisted to aid Q? And this is, you know, and the part of it of red pilling everybody, actually. And perhaps they said, okay, you know, you've always been a liar and a gatekeeper, keep doing that, but here's what, you know, here's what you're going to do. You're going to try to gatekeep someone who's smarter than you and accuse them of being what there's a lot of evidence that you are.
He said, I also believe that international broadcasters were equally important in laying the groundwork for the democratic revolutions that we have seen. Isn't it incredible how Western all of those Eastern Europeans sound, talking about freedom, democracy, free enterprise, environmental concerns?
And also, even with Trump, it's something to consider. The idea that nobody will be let off the hook. Just with all of these people that are like on our side, especially when it seems weird, you know, maybe when Trump was younger, he got a bit more involved than those of us who like him and trust him or want to trust him would like to think. You know, maybe he did do something that would be illegal, immoral. And maybe that was something that they had on him, and maybe that was part of why, even though they fought him every step of the way, why he was able to ascend in this, you know, beast system that we live in, because he was a little bit compromised. And maybe, you know, who knows? I tend to think that that the Q team really wanted somebody that actually was clean, but I could see it being like it can't be anything too bad because that would just be too shocking and discrediting, and it would just create too much chaos. But like with RFK is a good example. Like RFK said that his biggest weakness is his quote lust demon. So there could be something to that. I don't know. Ian Carroll made a big stink out of how everybody is going to find out that RFK is being blackmailed, and then nothing happened. So I don't know. I'm just thinking off the top of my head at the moment.
And they don't get those ideas from their own media or from textbooks in their countries. They get them mainly from international broadcasters like Voice of America, BBC Radio, Liberty Media for Europe. Tucker's father, Dick, ran the CIA's propaganda empire, pushing color revolutions in the Soviet Union, in the Warsaw Pact, in Tiananmen Square, in China. That's what the event was about. They were reflecting on the Tiananmen Square massacre, where Voice of America operatives were there spreading information about the student protests. Color revolutions In all the communist countries, and in China in particular, Dick Carlson wanted to overthrow the communist Chinese, and he played a part running Voice of America in 1989 to do this. And he bragged about how the peoples of the world are throwing off their oppressors, learning about free enterprise, democracy through Voice of America, which he ran. It's very important stuff. Appointed by Reagan. In the same job, Dick was a key component in the ultimately successful attempt to bring down the leftist Sandinista government in Nicaragua through hybrid warfare. That's the Iran-Contras affair, where Israel brokered arms and money exchanges, giving Iran weapons and money to fund the Contra fighters, the anti-communists in Nicaragua, the right-wing death squads. Dick was helping to do this. Dick would later be appointed by President George H.W. Bush as U.S. ambassador to the Seychelles and serve on a number of neoconservative think tanks. Chief among these is the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, an organization widely accused of being little more than a front for the Israel lobby. Indeed, when asked point blank if that were the case, he refused to deny it, stating only that Israel is a country under siege. It's a democracy in a part of the world where there are no democracies, and it is under constant irregular terrorist attack and threat. Also on the board of the FDD at that time were Jeane Kirkpatrick, a high official at the board of the FDD at that time, a high official at the center of the Iran-Contras affair, and R. James Woolsey, the CIA director from 1993 to 1995. Dick would later team up with Woolsey again at the Institute for the Study of Terrorism and Political Violence. Okay? So, to summarize, Tucker Carlson's father was appointed by Reagan to do U.S. information warfare, running the CIA's propaganda empire of international broadcasters, facilitating the overthrow of communist governments like the left-wing government in Nicaragua during Iran-Contras, and in China during the Tiananmen Square massacre. And he was bragging on a panel with Rupert Murdoch, the founder of Fox News, who the Reagan administration got into the United States because he's from another country. Dick Carlson then went on to work for neoconservative think tanks where he defended Israel. They're basically an outfit for Israel, working with other CIA agents involved in Iran-Contras at these various NGOs. That's Tucker Carlson's dad. That Tucker did not know was in the CIA. That Tucker is pleading ignorance. He was shocked, just absolutely shocked, that his father that ran Voice of America and USAI, his father that was at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, that was at these other neocon think tanks, appointed by George Bush as an ambassador, didn't know he was in the CIA world until he heard it from me, until he found out just this year.
Speaking of color revolutions in the United States, it says Obama lawyer Norm Eisen just I guess he dropped the berg, just admitted to waging a color revolution against Trump as part of a years-long coup. So I'm not going to play this whole clip, but
State Democracy Defenders Fund, we were born out of the success in stopping the attempted coup of 2020. And I kind of got the people who I admired the most. I worked representing multiple parties fighting in court, but also in the court of public opinion in that unsuccessful effort to reverse the legitimate outcome of the 2020 election. I got the best people together who I thought were the toughest, the smartest, and who won a lot in 2020. And we added in building our organization. We started this immediately after. This work started on January 7th, this new work, 2021, right after the coup failed, when the violent insurrection that Trump inspired on January 6th was defeated. I started combining the most successful coup fighters that I came across.
So he's framing it as he's the counter-revolution, but wait till he'll. So right, he's saying Trump is the coup J6 is the insurrection, blah, blah, blah. And they got all the people who were the best at putting down the Trump illegitimate coup. But then wait till how he starts characterizing what they're doing in a second.
In my work in 2020 with experts who had helped study or defeat autocracy internationally. So we went to places over the intervening years like Hungary and Turkey, where the effort to oust an autocrat failed. Why did it fail? What did they fail to do? But we also looked at places like Poland, Brazil, Czech Republic, the country where I served as ambassador, where there were successful ousters in recent years of autocratic regimes.
Okay, so now first is Trump is the revolutionary. He's got to frame it that way because that's the talking point. But now he's talking literally about studying and assembling a team of people for internationally who have done successful color revolutions against quote unquote autocratic leaders, which are just leaders that these people don't like. So sort of to take a step back and bring this together again, what just happened? A CIA agent whose dad ran the CIA, was in charge of propaganda the propaganda arm of the CIA in its efforts to create color revolutions in China, in Russia, elsewhere. This guy's mentioning the more recent ones. The CIA agent, then that's what I named this stream. CIA Operation Implodes. So what's being exposed is a CIA agent and son of a CIA agent who are involved in color revolutions. Simultaneously, members of the Obama administration and others are being subpoenaed to testify in front of Congress for doing a color revolution. And another part of this is that a young guy who articulates the full picture of what America First is and what the problems are for this country, the foreign occupation, the real cultural and civilizational battle, the white genocide, is amplified tremendously to the point that people are more interested in him than they are about Tucker, who's been the most popular kind of voice on the right for the last several years and has been in this industry for decades. And then all of this is happening concurrently while the censorship on Nick has been lifted. And I can talk about him for 2 hours on here and not worry about my show. Let's see if, okay, this is just my homepage on YouTube. Nick Fuentes torches Matt Walsh for calling white people terrorists. That's the first thing that pops up. Sam and Nick's Perfect Clips. Oh, that's a Sam Hyde show. Here's Candace claiming that she knows that Trump will pardon Maxwell. Here's Nick again. Remember when you couldn't even search his name? You couldn't put a clip of him on YouTube? And yes, okay, Elon bought X and opened it up. So Elon and Trump are supposedly feuding, but Trump gave Elon a bunch of money for his super PAC just while they were feuding. And one of the most significant things that Elon did was unleash the frogs and Nick. And here I am, but YouTube is still run by the deep state, right? But now I go on here and it's Nick. It's Nick again. It's Nick again. Here he is again. Here he is again. It's not like all I said I use YouTube for is to watch his clips. Like, here, what if I go to, I'm guessing if I go incognito, you won't see any, but maybe. I'm curious. Can't I put it in there? It actually won't give me a, you can't see it because I'd have to share a different window, but it doesn't give you a front page. But yeah, if I search Francis Tucker, like everybody is talking about this. So like, you know, this is important context. As this is happening, Nick isn't banned on here anymore. Like he doesn't have a channel, but Tucker Carlson views sync as Nick Fuentes and Asmongold join forces. I assume it says forces after that. Nick Fuentes. Like everybody's talking, it just keeps going. It used to be you type in Nick Fuentes and you get nothing. Sam Hyde W for sure. I've been loving Sam lately. Everybody's talking about this. And we're allowed to. We're all being allowed to talk about this. And a lot of people, basically everybody is saying, like, listen, Tucker, you just got wrecked. Like, you have to have him on your show now. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next. But I don't know. I mean, I know we're awesome, and I know we're right, and I know Nick is the GOAT. But like, how hard can we be winning at the same time here? You know. So what happens if you know? I never stopped being a griper. I just couldn't be Q-tard and counter signal Nick while saying that that's what I am, which I get. You know, this vision is the future, but like, you know, it's the future whether or not Q happens and is real. But if it is, there's going to be a huge power vacuum, because all of the blackmailed people are going to go to prison or they're going to go into hiding. And if before that happens, there's a giant amount of young people who are red pilled and this is how they think to fill those positions, that'd be good. So anyway, that's my take. Yeah, thanks, Friendly. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by the lack of attacks and the love that I continued to get from that community. Yeah, Nick, if you're talking about Nick there, he hasn't addressed Q very much at all. I've never heard him kind of really talk about it at all. He's just sort of been like, yeah, it's ridiculous. Um, and I don't know, I find it a little conspicuous that he never did a like deep dive on it. And maybe he's not aware of it. You know, you could even be a part of it and not be aware of that. I don't know. Crazy times to live in, man. You know, I have ancestors that were thinking about if they're, you know, thinking about the harvest, you know, all day. Uh, So anyway, I'll leave it there. Friendly, thanks for hanging out this whole time. I really appreciate it. Everybody else that popped in, thank you. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. Maybe share the video. And as you left on understandable and friendly terms, unlike the A-logs that make a career obsessed about. Yeah, I would never do that. I love the movement. And yeah, it's a pretty exciting time. I was saying recently, last week was a difficult week to be the guy that chose to be a Q-tard over a Groiper, because there's a lot of momentum here, and it's very exciting. But I will, I will cheerlead from the stands for now, and we're on a collision course with the truth. Well, it's all going to come together, baby.